Hi YouTube, Bettina here. I'm in Manhattan and I am just doing an afternoon walk over by the west side. And I thought I'd take you along with me as I do the walk. It is a bit windy outside, so the winds are a bit crazy, but the temperature itself isn't actually that bad. I'm not even wearing gloves. So that's pretty cool. Today I wanted to talk to you about adding financial obligations and how to be the need to be really careful when you do that as you are in retirement or approaching retirement. So life happens, life isn't stagnant. So the expenses that you have at the time you go to retire or that you think you're going to retire may not necessarily stay the same. Like, for instance, Matt and I, or more so me, would love to have a home in Long Island, be able to be near family, my family, that is, and just enjoy being around my siblings and friends during retirement. I think that would just be such a wonderful thing. But I have to postpone and kind of wait. And I know that I have to do this because this is a real big financial obligation. And let's just say we were going to sell our apartment in Brooklyn and we were going to do that. We might be able to pay for most of the property itself, but our costs would really probably go up considerably because there are other costs associated with home ownership. So when you're thinking on taking on big financial obligations, just want you to be as careful as you can to consider all the all the consequences, or at least the financial cost associated with it. So in our case, for example, the having a buying a property in Long Island, it wouldn't just be the taxes and the insurance. Us moving to Long Island might mean that we need another car because it would be difficult to be a one car family and you're not always doing something with your partner 24/7. And so there is an example of an additional cost that some people might not really consider. They're just considering trying to walk and not get the sun in your eyes um, with buying that property. And then there is the fact that we would be on Long Island. So if we were on Long Island, that would also mean that we're going out more with our friends and our family, and that would that would mean spending a lot more in retirement because the budget of what we spend now in Brooklyn would potentially change if we were moving to Long Island. Now, Matt and I don't have kids, but a lot of people, one of the biggest regrets that people have in retirement that is the amount of money that they spend on their kids. And so adult kids have bigger spending situation than younger kids sometimes. And so for instance, if you're retired and you're helping a younger, you're helping your child and like to say purchase a car, and the next thing you know, you're giving them a car or you're helping them pay their bills because let's say they lost their job. Those kind of things can really derail your expenses in retirement. And so, and maybe these might not be your financial obligations, but parents help their kids for often, and that's going to affect your finances. So if you decide to, let's say, buy another car or change um, where you live, uh, if you're not downsizing and you're moving, let's say, to a different state, there might be additional costs. Now you have to travel home to see family. So when you're making these financial obligation decisions, really try to stop and think through all the things that you might not be thinking about. Like in our case, our water bill, we don't even have a water bill right now. It's included in our maintenance. Now we would get a water bill. We we don't pay for heating right now. It's included in our maintenance. We would probably, so those costs that I'm not thinking about, that I don't even know what they would be additional cost to buying the home. And then there's the maintenance and the upkeep. My maintenance, again, in a property in Brooklyn covers the upkeep. And so just buying the home itself, while you're thinking it as one financial decision, it's has a ripple effect in your overall finances. So you kind of have to be as careful as you can and be as considerate as you can and really think through, though, adding financial obligations to your finances when you want retirement, because it just takes a little bit to throw anything off track. And I don't care how much money you save for retirement. There, you can get a spending problem where your spending is over and above what you financially plan for. And then, therefore, it would just cause you to potentially run out of money earlier in life than you had planned for. So if you're, let's say, need now 6 or 7% of your money just to be able to keep your bills afloat, there's going to come a point in time where you might run out of income from your investments to cover these newfound financial obligations. And so just really think it's very important to try to completely think of all the pros and cons when it comes to the expense portion side of the equation. Maybe there's going to be some things that you would remove by buying that purchase, but then other things that you would be adding to the purchase. So in the case that I used in the example about Long Island, we would probably be spending more on food than we do now, because now, even though we go out pretty often, now we'd be going out to eat with other people. And we've never been one to like itemize the bill down to exactly what we spent. We just like split it, and I'm actually okay with that. But it could come to a point where our bill would end up being higher. Plus, Long Island might be more expensive to eat out than it is in Brooklyn. Maybe it's a little bit less, but you have to think through of the places you'd be going to. I think it's actually more though. But the places you're going to be going to, what are all the things that are going to affect? And so in the example, I also use what we probably would need an additional car. Additional car would mean additional car maintenance. It would also mean additional insurance. And then that would mean my umbrella policy would go up too, because that would be an additional vehicle to go onto the umbrella policy. So there are costs that could be hidden that you're not even realizing that are associated with the new obligation or financial obligation that you're adding. And you're on a retirement budget. So your budget is finite. Unless you're considering going back to work and you want to stay retired. And if you want to stay retired and not pick up any new work, or you can't work, then really think through, because any decision that you make when it comes to raising your expenses during retirement can have a dramatic effect on your overall budget and your finances. Anyway, I truly do think about it, and while I really, really would love to buy a place in Long Island, I kind of have to wait until our expenses get to a point where we truly can afford it, and there's enough buffer in our budget that the additional cost that doesn't seem like it's not out there in the open is covered when we make that purchase. So that example again would be getting a second car because we'd be in Long Island, spending a little bit more money on entertainment and going out because we'd be in Long Island. There'd be more people to see. It may end up meaning that we're doing a lot more entertainment at home. So the food budget goes up as well. So all these things I have to consider in our finances. And while I may want to purchase that home and on paper, it looks like we can afford it. In reality, in practical sense, it may literally throw our finances off whack. And so I don't think a lot of people really think these things through. And I know one of the biggest regrets that retirees have, that is they kind of worry about, is how much they end up spending on their kids, because adult kids especially require a lot more than young kids do when it comes to retirement. I mean, just think about, like, you're helping a kid and you're giving them money for a down payment on a home. That's going to cost. Or you're financing, you're retired and you're helping them finance a wedding. That's going to raise your finances. So these things happen and life happens and continues to happen. So a lot of people don't really think these things, expenses through when they're figuring out their budget when they're going to retire. But you have to put enough buffer in your budget so that if you do have your son or your daughter moving back in with you because they lost their job and they can no longer afford their bills, and now you have extra mouths to feed in your home, those are really a lot of financial obligations that you're going to have that may could really derail your retirement finances. Anyway, just some things to consider. I mean, I don't really have solutions on how to handle these things, but if they are purchases that you yourself are making, you could try to think about all the pros and the cons as far as your financial obligations and what it's going to cost, how it affects your finances, and what are the hidden costs that you're not thinking about that you have to consider before you make that decision. For instance, a lot of people, when they go to buy a car, they naturally think to call the insurance company and say, hey, what is it going to cost to insure this car before I buy the car? Almost saying to try to think that way through before you add additional financial obligations at a point in life where the income isn't flowing in. So the way it was when you were working, you have to actually really think through those things more carefully in retirement. Anyway, this is Regina. I hope everyone is doing well and having a great day. And if you have any questions or comments, please hit them on the bottom and then hit like and subscribe, and I will catch you on the next one. Take care. Oh, and beautiful Manhattan skyline. Just pretty. Oops. Sorry.